Hey folks, this is the Maine Prepper, and I wanted to make this video to intersperse between the other one that was going to be the part 2 about Katrina, and to give you guys an actual, my first-hand take on some of the hurricanes that I saw. And I believe it was either Katrina or Rita when they evacuated Houston. So I wanted to give what I saw in the refugees and the dislocated civilians and just the whole effort. At some point, the mayor, what happens, they have to make a call to evacuate the city, and they did. And typically unprepared, average citizen went out and got in their vehicle. Most of them had been advised to top off, which they did. But your fuel tank only has a certain range on it, and that depends on you being able to drive. It goes pretty quick just sitting there idling. So everybody got in their cars and started heading out of the city, up Highway 45, and I lived just a few miles away from Highway 45, but well outside the city. So Highway 45 ran about 14 miles from my house. Now, many people in my church, they had property, as in homes and subdivisions, right next to the freeway, still outside of the city. And so they weren't in the evacuation zone. And I'm going to tell you what I saw, and then I'm going to tell you what they saw and experienced and shared with me. As more and more people started evacuating and leaving the city, the freeway became congested, and eventually they had gridlock and it wasn't going anywhere. And then people sat in their cars in the heat, and they idled the engine because it was so hot with all these cars around, with the engines idling in the heat of the day, sitting on top of the pavement with no shade to run the air conditioners. And eventually their cars all ran out of fuel. Even if they hadn't had the ACs, they weren't going anywhere. They were stuck. And so they could not get off the freeway because they couldn't get back to the exits. The ones that could were taking the exits, only to find that the side streets were blocked as well. Mostly, though, they needed to get off and get gasoline. The gas stations and the stores that sold food and water and anything else were cleaned out within less than a day. You could get no gas, no nothing. And the trucks that would be needed to resupply them, although they were still running, they couldn't get down the road because they had opened the freeway going both ways. The inbound and outbound, they had turned them both into outbound. So there was nothing coming inbound. So all of these stores were locked down. And we that lived nearby that weren't in the evacuation area, we saw all the roads congested. And so we didn't even go into town or anything because they cleaned out everything that was like locusts. And worse, they were in a panic. That's what I noted. I rode my bicycle up to observe and see what was going on. And it was very sad, and because people with kids and everything else didn't have enough supplies in the car. They had thrown some things in the trunk to spend the night somewhere, but they were truly expecting to go someplace and be rescued, or maybe to go to they just figured they would get in their car and they would go out of town, and it would be just like the last time they went out of town. They'd go 50 or 60 miles out of town and get a nice hotel. Well, there were a million other people doing the same thing. There's no camp you can put 1 million people into and not have chaos. More importantly, and actually more sad, what was really tragic was there was no place to go to the bathroom. So they were going to the bathroom on the side of the road, including defecating, and the stench was getting really bad and nauseating. And if that's also how you get dysentery, and amoebic dysentery is spread just that way. People going to the bathroom and not digging cat holes, and kids play in it. People walk through it. You walk through it. You just get a little bit on your shoe. You get back in the car. It gets on the carpet. Somebody touches it with their finger. They put their finger in their eye. There's so many ways it spreads. It's amazing and very, very dangerous. So people were getting sick, and if you get dysentery and you don't have any water, you're going to die. Because you're going to be essentially spewing liquids out of your body rapidly, and if you don't get some back in you, you're going to die. And even then, you can't keep them in you. So it can become a very, very serious problem, not just an inconvenience. Then it got really crazy. Towards evening, the people became desperate and started driving through the subdivisions, and they had containers to try to put water in and gas, and they were coming up into people's yards and just turning the water hose on and filling up their jugs, and the people didn't mind that lived in the homes, but then they were demanding gas. And one of the guys at church said they came to his house and banged on the door pretty loud and said, "Can you sell me some gas?" And he said, "Well, I don't have any gas." And he said, "Well, how about for your lawnmower?" The guy was real, like, up in his face. And he said, "I don't have, a lawnmower. We have somebody mows the lawn for us." And the guy said, "I don't believe you, and I want some gas," and really belligerent. And after that, he said, "Maybe I should get a gun." I said, "Get two of them, because one for you, one for your wife." Because in those situations, when people get desperate, they do desperate things. And this guy was trying to bulldog my friend into giving him gas. There were other people running around taking the garden hoses that they found and slicing them up and making siphons out of them and stealing gas. And this in broad, not in broad daylight because it was getting towards evening, but this in full view. Like, I don't care what you do about it. And a lot of people say, "Well, I'd shoot them." Well, you'll go to prison because in Texas, if somebody's stealing gas from your car in the day and it's out on the street, you can go out and confront them, but you just can't shoot them because people, jury of your peers will say there's no reason you weren't in danger of your life. It was gasoline, not they're stealing your car, so you're not authorized to do that. But at the end of the day, they were desperate and swarming through, and there was nothing planned. Well, the city got caught flat-footed, and they know it. Now they've got some plans in place, but quite frankly, why are we letting somebody else take care of these things for us? Prior planning prevents poor performance. Not that everybody has a crystal ball, but it's not like it was our first hurricane down there. So here are some takeaways from this. Number one, your car will not have enough fuel range to get you out of the city if you wait until the evacuation order comes. It will, however, have fuel range if you bug out early. If you say, "You know what, the hurricane's coming," and then again, maybe it's not. I'm going to leave early, and we're going to take the kids, we're going to go on a little vacation out wherever. We're going to get far away, and we're not going to be overrun. You don't want to go just 50 miles away and then just be vacationing with a bazillion other people running around buying everything in sight. The second thing is panic buying, and I've seen this in every hurricane. If you go in the store and there's 1,000 bottles of water and somebody needs 5, they'll buy 5. If they go in and there's only 20 bottles left and they can see all the shelves are cleaned out and they only need 5, they'll buy 20 because they're seeing a message that, oops, resupply is not working. So they'll buy way more than they need. So it's this self-fulfilling prophecy. Once you get past a certain tipping point, they buy everything. It's all gone before you can go get any of it. So the second takeaway is to have your stuff already purchased and stashed away at your house. The third takeaway would be, if you are going to stay home, to be able to defend yourself. Because the people that don't have anything, some of them are quite aggressive, and if you're not able to defend yourself, had my friend open the door, not pointing the gun at him, but just holding it in his hand, "Can I help you?" I've done that before with really belligerent people. There was a kick burglary rash going on in my neighborhood when I was going to college. And the MOs, they'd come and they'd bang on your door real loud and see if you answered with a gun in your hand. And if you did, they'd go away. And I did with a gun in my hand, and they did go away. And they fit the MO perfectly. The police told me later, and that was good. I had that. I had a .45 in my hand. I didn't point it at him, but I had it where I could. So be armed would be the third takeaway. The fourth takeaway is don't rely on the government to plan for you, because they're not experts. They may hire somebody that says they're an expert, but at the end of the day, that person is more often than not a political appointee, or they just got no training whatsoever. So those are some takeaways that I have from my personal observation, and that was a short-term event, very, very short, like just a few days. Within a few days, it was over, and it took a while for all the debris to get cleaned up. But just for a few days, it was really dangerous for a lot of people. Imagine if that thing was bigger and it hit, what if a hurricane hit or the equivalent of a hurricane hit the whole nation? We'd be in some serious trouble, folks. All right, this has been the Maine Prepper. Thank you for tuning in, and this has been my little observation on hurricanes. I'm going to start sharing these things that I've seen in wars and disasters and everything else, just from the perspective of how it relates to us as preppers. And hopefully you'll glean from this that what I'm teaching you here and what the others that are teaching this stuff are doing. We're trying to have you so that you're not stuck in that crowd and you're not having to be out in public and endangering yourself. You can be at home content and secure and safe in the knowledge that you have everything you need to provide for yourself during austere, difficult, and dangerous times. Thank you, folks. This has been the Maine Prepper, and it's been my pleasure to have you over. Come back again tomorrow.